come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready. Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome back to the vlog on the vlog. This is attempt number 2. We're going to chalk the first one up to an appraisal of all that is new on the website, and along with an encouragement for those who are not as active on the website. I think there's about 120 to 130 members now, but those who are not quite as active, we want to encourage you to comment on the vlogs, comment on the blogs, comment on the whole comment and topic section. Make a contribution. Make this a community. That's the way it was established. And we hope you'll do that. Now, as for where we were, we're going to have this be the second portion of our vlog on the vlog today. And hello, Kevin. I put in a chit. We'll take care of Wookie. He's now being paid overtime for this particular show. He's not here for the show because he's also in Leia's spa, getting the doggy treatment. Yeah, he's getting the doggy
Wookie.
bath.
Good.
Oh yeah, Wookie is really getting the treatment today. You know, when you're a worker like he is, you got to get the whole spa treatment. So back in the day, Yahweh had quite a problem. He made a mistake. He admits he made a mistake. We were that mistake. He created Nasalma man, which was an animal capable of communicating and relating to him and ultimately exploring the universe with him by giving that animal a Nasalma, making Adam the first man with a Nasalma. Yah was firstborn. And Adam was lethargic, didn't engage, didn't listen, wasn't reliable, didn't work out. But God didn't really give up on Adam. He just, well, you know, if you ever saw the movie Failure to Launch, well, it was just appropriate that Adam, after a while, get a chance to kind of learn on his own a little bit, experience some hard knocks and see if he could overcome them and achieve. And so his father booted him out of the house for a while and then surrounded him with the kind of people that could make a difference in his life. And so as we read that, God was so remorseful for having created humanity that his first response was that he was just going to wipe us all out. He had no interest in trying to resolve the problem. That's pretty interesting. He didn't say, you know, let's all have a powwow. We'll talk this over. Let's see if we can get back
Talk
on
it out. No.
Powwow.
Yeah.
They'd be, you know, no, let's establish a fancy dinner. Let's have a party. I don't know, a meet and greet, whatever it's going to be. No, there was no encouragement for anybody, including any statement from God that said, I think we can resolve this problem. All that was left was a reboot. And the only one that God felt that he could reboot the system with was Noah. And so in our last program, what we were considering is the fact that there is a 0% chance that Noah could have just been some schmo out there that happened to trip upon Yahweh's name chiseled in a rock someplace and says, hey, you know, I kind of like that name. But there was no Torah. Adam was long gone. The only person who knew Adam well enough to know Yahweh and develop a relationship with Yahweh was Chinook. And second Chinook was even gone. So there is literally no way. It is absolutely impossible that if we're just playing the game straight and Noah was some guy that was born among the Nephilim and decided to move out of town, that he could have known anything about Yahweh. Right. And what God says about him is impossible unless there is more to the story, and that's the story that we have been telling through this volume of Coming Home, Volume 4, tracing God's prophetic presentation of the Maorith, who are the luminaries. And what we discover is that Noach is actually Chinook. Chinook and Noach are the same person. And they have what is essentially the same name, just slightly altered to fit each particular circumstance. And so here's what we read. Then in relation to this, Noach, the restoring guide, leading to spiritual rest, the revived explorer, the one who directs towards spiritual repose. And it is from Naak, which is a leader and a guide, reliably creating an opportunity for a more favorable spiritual situation. And Nuach, which speaks of that spiritual abode, he had attained and experienced matzah. Now, this is written in the Call Perfect, which we mentioned in the last program. So my guess is if I ask you, so what does the call stem signify here as it pertains to the verb matzah?
It's literal. I am never going to forget it. It is an actual thing. Call is literal. Yep.
Yes. So it says that he literally attained. He actually experienced. This is not metaphorical. This is not symbolic. This actually occurred. And in the perfect conjugation, what is the implication of it pursuant to this verb?
It's a one-time deal. Inside of time, it's a one and done.
Right.
It happened at this time. It's not ongoing.
Right. A finite. So it can't be a finite experience in time in the future in this case, can it? Because he's already earned God's favor. So it has to be something that took place in the past, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So sometime in the past, before God knew Noach, he had attained and experienced approval and acceptance. Now, the only way for that to have occurred is that there is some soul in the past that God has designated as a person who has gained his favor.
Yeah.
Is there any such person?
Someone he lacoted, maybe? Yeah. Is lacoted that Chinook?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You lacot with in the past tense, lacoted. Okay. I've been accused of doing that too.
I'm going to anglicize the Hebrew.
There you go. He had attained and experienced God's approval, acceptance, and favor. There's only one person who was described by Yahweh to have previously earned his approval, acceptance, and favor. And by the way, we're going to find out that he did it exactly the same way Noach did, and that is Chinook. So he had attained and experienced, at some point in time, discovered and acquired, quite literally, the approval, acceptance, and favor in the eyesight and presence and understanding of Yahweh. Now, what's really interesting is that Yahweh wanted nothing to do with the Nephilim, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So Yahweh had focused on Adam in the garden, did he not?
Yeah, Adam was his guy, his first.
Right, and then he kicked Adam out of the garden for non-compliance, if you will, for lethargy. And when he did, God was still interested in Adam because Adam was his guy, was his firstborn. But apart from Adam, he wasn't paying much attention to anything that was going on. He really disliked what was going on in the world around Adam. In other words, outside the garden, humans existed. And then when humans intermarried into the descendants of Adam and Chawa, they gained a neshama and they just became worse. And the more of them there were and the longer they played among themselves, the worse they became. So God wasn't spending a lot of time.
We don't hear anything after Cain. I mean, he dresses down Cain and says, you got to go. And then, and nothing.
And he tells Cain, oh, by the way, just to keep this thing under wraps here, you are going to give birth to Chinook. And there's going to be an entire protective community named after Chinook, which is obviously where Adam was taken, so that Adam could be protected from all of the ill effects that were happening around the world. And then what we find is that Adam's great grandson, 5 times over, he then came through the Seth line. So there was a first Chinook and a second Chinook, the same soul, different timing, and both looked after their grandpa. Literally, a grandchild came to the rescue of their grandfather, with both Chinooks. But that's who God was focused on, because we know that because not only did he tell an elaborate story about first Chinook, and that elaborate story of first Chinook could not have been told if God wasn't paying attention to him, could it? Because there's no other person. There's no other person that an elaborate story is told after the terrible interplay between Adam and Chava, and then between their kids Cain and Hevel. At that point, other than the 2 Chinooks, we go to darkness. God says nothing about what anybody else is doing. Just those 2 Chinooks.
Yeah.
So they're the prequel that God says, I'm watching over. So if he says I'm watching over, those are the only 2 that the Torah says that he paid any attention to. So the name Noach, which written from right to left in Hebrew would be Nun Cheth. How was a nun drawn, Kevin?
That is the little sperm guy.
Yeah, a little sperm guy. And how is a Cheth drawn?
The Chet is that the wall, the separating, the little fence?
Correct, the wall. And the wall was designed to do 2 things. One is to separate good from bad, safe from unsafe, but also to protect those inside. So that was the purpose of a wall. So this would be the son who separates and protects. That's Noach's name, as it's written in the graphic alphabet of Hebrew. It's the son who separates and protects. And he is presented as the restored guide to explore spiritual serenity based upon the 2 words, the verbs that are most similar to it. And he shares considerable commonality with Chinook. Chinook, you take the first 2 letters of Chinook and the only 2 letters of Noach. They happen to be the same letters, don't they? They're just reversed.
Yes, they do.
And Chinook, it's separating and protecting the son, because the Chet comes before the Nun. So in Chinook, he's the one who separates. He took him to the city named after himself and protected. That's why the city was called a protective enclosure. The son, who is the firstborn of Yahweh, that would be Adam. So Chinook is named for his mission. He is the one protecting the son. And by the time we move now to Noach, Noach is the son who is separating and protecting. So he's done a really good job of protecting Yahweh's firstborn son, Adam. And so Yahweh, after he's taken Chinook to be with him, views Noach as a son.
Right.
Otherwise, the name would not read the way it does. This is really a neat thing to recognize as to how those 2 letters say the same thing from reverse order, and what they mean. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Then Chinook adds 2 additional letters to it. It adds the wah, which is the tent peg, which means that he is there to protect the son. So to secure and enlarge that which is being offered. The open hand of Keph speaks of that which is being offered through him. So it is protecting and securing the son, who is Adam and becomes Dode, by adding what is being offered by God. So that's Chinook. And his name in Hebrew means trained and deployed explorer. So as I say, Chinook, reading right to left, begins with the Chet and is followed by the Nun. So it's protecting the sun. And Noach is then the Nun first and the Chet second, which is the sun who separates and protects from God's perspective. So the Wah simply means that he is being secured in the father's and son's home by providing a calf a helping hand. And since Matzah had attained and experienced favor, was conveyed, and in the completed voice of the perfect conjugation, we should view it as having previously occurred as opposed to currently ongoing, and it could not have been in the future, otherwise it wouldn't pertain to the present. So it has to be something that has previously occurred during a specific period of time, like during Chinook's life. So this directs us right back to Chinook, where God said of him exactly the same thing he will soon announce pursuant to Noach. So remember, Chinook, a trained and prepared pathfinder, a dedicated and devoted co-worker who was installed and deployed as an explorer. That is Chinook, to initiate the process of a properly instructed student and experienced servant who was introduced, established, and favored for his compassionate leadership, and educated and cultivated as an archetype, a qualified and proficient inaugural individual who is competent and an accomplished co-worker, properly equipped and decided upon, organized and ready, enthusiastic and steadfast, fervent and loyal. The whoop whoop in the background was Leah. When I mentions that I'm an archetype, that means that I'm older than she is, because there's no such thing as a young archetype, right?
Right.
She's the young'un by comparison. I think when she met Boaz as Ruth, she was half his age. I think she was a spry 40-ish when Boaz was 80.
Wow,
so,
yeah.
yeah. So she likes archetypes, fortunately for me, right?
Lucky you, right?
Lucky me. So it says that Chinook was unfazed by external human influences in his consistent walk through life. This is Wahalak. And if you want to understand, you want to go from simply knowing, because if you read an average religious Bible, what you're going to find is he walked with God. That's all you're going to read. And it's as if the Hitpael imperfect were not written. But the Hitpael imperfect, the stem and the conjugation, both shape our understanding of the verb and establish a relationship between the subject and the object of the verb. And what they say is that this walk in the Hitpael stem was unaffected by anything that was going on around him. In other words, he was the one guy who was not affected by the growth in religiosity and politics and violence and militancy and all of those kinds of things. Chinook stood apart.
He was not a kneeler.
He had already met the first condition of the covenant, is to walk away from religion and politics. That is what made his walk appealing to Yahweh. And the fact that it was in the imperfect, that means it was habitual and ongoing and consistent. So he had a consistent walk that was unlike everybody else around him, which means he wasn't religious or political or militant. Pretty cool. That was his walk. Now, when God speaks of Noach, and he's going to use the same verb, halak, what do you think the chances are that he applies that Hitpael stem again?
Pretty good on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Me thinks it's pretty high likelihood. So he was unfazed by external human influences in his consistent walk through life. He, free of human cultural, societal, religious, or political control mechanisms, traveled with the Almighty. So Chinook, trained and prepared pathfinder, a dedicated and devoted co-worker who was installed and deployed to serve as an explorer. Do you think that he was named appropriately? unfazed by external societal influences, consistently walked, traveling through life with the Almighty. Now, didn't we just hear that? Do we have an echo here?
Right.
Echo, echo. No, God repeated himself, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He used the same verb, the same name, and the same verb conjugated the same way to tell us the same thing. You think there might be a reason for that? They really end a long walk?
Hiya, pay attention.
Pay attention. What he is telling you is this verb to move together, to journey together, to sojourn through life together, unaffiliated by all of the other influences that are making man run amok, is essential to why Yahweh favored this man. That's the reason. And yet, if you read in a Bible translation, it's just a repeat of he walked with God. They miss it all.
They walked, huh?
They walk. Now, if you want to go from, first of all, to know, you've got to go way beyond what any religious person is going to do, because you have to drop your faith before you even have a chance to know.
Sure.
But if you're going to understand, you've got to actually analyze the words as they were written. And I don't think there's anyone who's ever done what we're doing here, which is actually to take the Hebrew grammar and apply it appropriately.
Yeah, everybody even tries to say, well, it's the rabbis, the Hebrew as they exist, the Jews as they exist now. It's their language; they've spoken it for years, right? They should know what the words mean. But being in diaspora, they've lost all that. Coming out of Babylon, they've lost. They not only lost it, they threw it away. They wrote it out of their lives. You know,
they're much more. They're much more attuned now to diacritical markings in religious writings, and never considering the stems, the conjugations, or the moods. And that's the key to understanding. But they threw it all away. It is by analyzing moods that I actually figured out that Dode was the Messiah who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, because he wrote most of what he had to say in the cohortative and in the imperative moods. And so if he's speaking to Yahweh and he's saying I and you, or it's Yahweh speaking to him and it's you and me, when you use the cohortative and the imperative moods as an expression of first and second person volition, and they're combined on the same verb, it means we want the same thing. We agree to whatever this verb is speaking about here. And then when they were talking about the salvation of Israel, it means that they had come to an agreement that they wanted to do this the same way for the same reasons. And you'll miss all of that if you don't pay attention to how the text was written. And Hebrew was written to be a unique language where there is no past, present, and future tense, where there is only completed and uncompleted action. And that completed and uncompleted action can also designate actionable nouns, so that you can have an actionable title also derived from this. And then relational stems that establish the relationship between the subject and the object of the discussion, as well as moods that express volition. That's a lot to convey, isn't it?
Ha-Nakri, Ha-Zeroa. It's not just any old Zeroa. It's Zeroa, right? It's
or Yada. Yada is a verb, but when it's written in the participle form, for example, it's an actionable noun. Mm-hmm. So it is Yada doing something, knowing, understanding, or you doing something pursuant to Yada. So the infinitive and the participle forms convey an actionable noun. That is a profound insight that very few people want to acknowledge. But that's what the grammar dictates. So then after Noach, it says, or this is Chinook, after Chinook walked in a way that was completely disjoined from the cultural and religious and political and militant malfeasance going around him. After he did that with Yahweh, then he was not. There was nothing of him. He just disappeared, right? Because God grasped hold of him at that moment and obtained him for a period of time. Now, what's interesting here is that, first of all, God is explaining how this upcoming Shavuot harvest is going to transpire.
Right.
He says, and then he was not. So the people say, what's going to happen to our bodies? Why do you care?
Right.
Yeah. So what? The body's useless. You know, Chinook, I'm going to tell you, is going to have 8 of them. You know,
dropping them all over the earth, right?
They're damn near a dime a dozen. You know, to dust. Stop focusing on the body. The longer you focus on the body, the longer it'll be before you understand any of this. The soul is what matters. The soul is exists in dimensions beyond the 3 that the body exists in. God can take and redeploy a soul in anybody he wishes to, because the body is simply a 3-dimensional vessel, a sophisticated one, but not to God. In fact, to God, it's the big limiting factor. That's why God says that his spirit's not going to continue to exist with flesh. Yeah, we've got to, our souls have to be enveloped in light energy if we're ever going to have an ongoing eternal relationship with God. So God says of him that he was not. It means that his body and any presence that he had on earth was just gone. Why? Because God grasped hold of him at that moment and obtained him for a period of time. You want to bet how Lecoq was written? Because it was written in the perfect, which means that God didn't retain him at that moment for all time. He just retained him for a period of time, and that period of time was about 50 years.
Right.
That's how long it was from him taking him and putting him back in. And at that point, he could do so because he had already survived Dode. Dode's first life was over, so he had taken care of Dode all the way to the end, and he had a son, Methuselah, the longest lived son, and he and his wife had a grandchild, and they got to know Lamech through his teenage years, which was a harbinger of of them getting to know another very important son as he would enter his teenage years, and that would be Yishak. So, because Lamech is the foundation of the family home. So God took him for a period of time. And in this case, Noach, the restored guide leading to spiritual rest, was also the one individual who was not affected by the corrupting influences of those around him. We previously deduced that Nasalma man had earned a really bad Shem reputation for being chalal, deceitful, dishonorable, destructive, and deadly. And this condition was exacerbated by as the population density Rabab grew. More of men there were, the more they were.
Did not make it
chalal.
Better.
No, chalal grows.
More was not merrier.
No, with gang mentality prevails with humans. The more of us there are, and the longer we congregate together as a nation, empire, community, or religious institution, the worse we become. And it is a maximum that is true throughout time. And this was God's problem with us. We became ever more deceitful, dishonorable, destructive, and deadly. It's the damning D's that get us every time. And man became...
There's an entendre there.
There is. It's the damning D's. The deceitful, dishonorable, destructive, and deadly D's. And it was the... Man became Lakash, controlling, and Bashar, animalistic. The Nephilim, the fallen, were particularly Bath, aggressive, particularly towards little girls. God didn't like that very much. They were really grabby and vicious, preying upon little girls. You know, it kind of reminds me of the religious community today, or the president of the United States, right? Pedophilia was rampant. And they were prone to be gadol, emboldened, asserting themselves while picking fights. Now, this resulted in the propensity to be wrong and the misery and depravity that results from being evil. Humanity's every thought and inclination was raw, undesirable, and repugnant according to God. This is the assessment he has given thus far. And it's, by the way, it's going to get worse because he's going to add Hamas to this as we move forward. And Hamas describes they were essentially terrorists. So as a consequence, God was reeling. He was insulted, literally insulted. He should be. You created this beautiful planet and this beautiful being that is humanity and gave them this marvelous mind with a neshama. And all we were doing is killing and torturing and abusing and creating false gods. And we were awful.
Making sure nobody else had a chance. You start creating governments, political systems, and false gods, and nobody else has a chance because it just becomes
to terrorize and subjugate and control and to fleece. We are. I mean, you study the history of civilization. We're despicable. Humankind is despicable. So humanity's every thought and inclination was raw, undesirable, and repugnant. As a consequence, God was reeling. He was insulted. He felt abused. He regretted that he had created a being so prone to twisting and distorting his original intent. Now, under the circumstances, with Yahweh wanting to wipe out Nesama man and with him showing no interest in other animals, Noach alone stands in the breach. One man. The restored guide was in this position because he had previously attained and experienced Yahweh's approval, earning acceptance and favor in God's sight. God knew who he was, what he could do, and that he could trust him because it was going to be a big damn job. Because God was not going to miraculously fix the situation, just pluck out all the bad Nesama humans and start again with the 8 and have it be a miraculous solution. Because if he did that, there'd be no lesson learned. The lesson is in the way that it was conducted. Yeah, this guy build a damn boat in the middle of nowhere with his sons and wives, their wives and his wife, and taking care of the animals and protecting them as a sign of the covenant. That was the story, and that's what he was setting up. And God was all in saying, I can trust this man. And he'll have sons such that I can trust them. And oh, by the way, the last time he did really well with his wife, so I'll give him the same wife, and they'll be fine. They'll make it happen. It is irrefutable proof, I think, that my assessment of Chinook becoming Noach is correct. He would receive just over 50 years of rest and training prior to being redeployed in year 1050. Yeah. Now, I think we could file a complaint here, Kevin. This time after 25 years of deployment, we're going to get a 2.5, 3 year break. Maybe not even that long. Yeah, Chinook, man, he got 50 years.
Before he had to go build a boat, really big boat.
Before he had to go back.
Right.
Well, okay. So
maybe it's okay. I'm not sure that he had the same digs that you have right now. I'm not disparaging the amount of work that you put into this, but building a boat and writing some books are two different things. I'm just saying that
I will tell you that what I have done in these 25 years surpasses what Chinook did in his time in terms of effort. I'm pretty sure of that. As for what Elia and I will do when we come back from our vacation. Now, Elia got a 2,888 year vacation. That's a long vacation.
Right.
But being a sacrifice and building a boat and making some sacrifices on the boat. But hey, listen, I'm not going to disparage Noach because It's one thing for me to say, and to I think this demonstrates that Chinook was Noach.
Mm-hmm.
But the other conclusion is that Noach, well, he became Midod.
Mm-hmm.
And Midod became Obed Edom, and Ethan Ha is Rocky. Same man, same life, different names for different purposes. Very slightly different purposes. And before he was Ezra or Rocky, he was Boaz. And he would be Boaz again after being Ethan Ha is Rocky, because he and Ruth would deliver the kinsman redeemer 1,000 years thereafter. And you're listening to him today. Same soul.
Yeah.
So,
Mikael and then Yada. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, that was just a quickie visit. I mean, that was just kind of in and out. You know, you're sent down, you give the spiel, and you come back out.
So those have got to be my favorite.
Yeah, that's by far
I would
my
take
favorite.
Those.
Yeah, so I'm just really picking having fun with Ya, saying, you know, the last time, come on, I got 50 years of rest. It'll be interesting. I'll go through, and all the way through, I will tell you all of the time. We've got Kara here trying to climb up the base. She's such a clever dog, trying to climb up the base of the glass table. She can see on top of the glass table that I have dog treats. They are all meats of various kinds. Her favorite is esophagus, dried esophagus. It doesn't sound very good, but that's what she just craves. That and duck. She's not kosher, so she does like her pig. She does do her pork from time to time, and there's a chicken strip up here as well. And so she's gone to her special bed, which is underneath the love seat, to enjoy a treat. But she saw it on top of the glass table. So anyway, I was just having fun with Yawa talking about the time, because it's not like I'm trying to say I've had a bigger challenge or a lesser challenge than Noach had or Chinook had, because I was Chinook and Noach. And that may just absolutely flip people beyond comprehension in terms of, wait a minute, what did he just say? But if you're part of this community and you've listened to these programs and you've gone where the words have led over the past 25 years, you know that we don't ever make a statement that Yahweh didn't lead us to. And this is where the words lead. And we came to this determination, Kevin, when we were confronted with the final word picture. The 31st Mashal, or proverb, made it so obvious who was talking, who were the husband and wife that Dode viewed as a mother and father who saved him from himself. And how did that relate then to the 89th Mizmor, the most powerful essay on life ever written, and the man who co-authored it with Yahweh? How did that relate? And then we traced all the players back through every clue that God had given us. And you know, I've written an entire book on just how we came to that conclusion. I haven't published it yet, but I've written it, and it led where we are. Oh, you think that I was saying, "Oh boy, isn't it neat? I've had going to have 8 lives by the time it's all over." Isn't that? Well, no. Your first reaction is, "God, stop it already."
Right.
I mean, come on. This is a tough enough job. By acknowledging this, and me having to acknowledge it because you went here. Now there's a bigger target on our heads.
Just another target.
And God, you're really making it difficult. And you know, you wonder why you didn't have anybody that actually saw the job through previously. Moshe gave up multiple times. Dode gave up multiple times. Elia, you know, the man with the way with words, he ran away and sat underneath their tree and said, "God, just kill me. I can't do this anymore." So it's not exactly an easy job. And, you know, and here we get to do it 8 times. So that wasn't something that I wanted to happen. But once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. And then something happens, Kevin, as you go through this process and you learn who these players are, you come to gain enormous additional respect for Yahweh. You know that he managed to keep his plan apace because of the people that he picked and the way that he deployed them and then redeployed those same people that he knew would listen to him, think about what he had to say, would respond appropriately, and could be trusted. That even with all of them and all of them failing, in the end, Moshe saw through. Eliah saw through. Dode saw through. You know, we've been up against the wall numbers of times. We're going to see it through. So ultimately, you know, Dode did what needed to be done. And God picked these personalities and said, with this group, they're not perfect, but that's good. I'm not perfect either. So we're a perfect match in that regard. And I know that with this group of characters, I can make this happen. We can see it through. We're going to get it done. And when you recognize how God didn't have to interfere with free will, he didn't have to make a big show of things. He was able to stay in character, which he wants to do everything through us, not over us or above us or to intimidate us. The plan makes perfect sense. And you realize that Chinook's role was singular. And we're going to learn eventually that Noach's role was singular. And Boaz's role was singular both times. And my role now is singular. It's to restore Dode's relationship with Yahweh and his reputation among his people so that redemption is possible. That's the job.
Yeah.
That's why he's the Katan Mayor to the Gadol Mayor. So that is who we're talking about here. And so Yahweh's instructions to Noach would be followed to the letter to save his creation. God gave him instructions. Noach didn't say, hey, you know, I think there's a better way. I think we can cut a corner. We don't need the damn glue lamps. You know, this damn thing is way bigger than it needs to be. Let's make it a little narrower, maybe a little taller. I've got a better idea. I don't like the rivets you want to put in here and the bolts. Well, just do it.
We're not going anywhere. How about just one door, right?
Yeah. Just come on, God. Make it a smaller flood, shorter period of time. And hey, if we're going to get on a damn boat, why can't we have sails and a rudder? So, you know, but Noach wasn't that kind of guy. Noach would say, all right, I'm going to go where the words lead. You tell me what you want to do. You're smarter than I am. It worked out in the past. It'll work out in the future. It's going to be a real simple relationship. You say what you want. I'll do what you say.
Yeah.
Real simple. And we'll get it done. You know, I might give you some lip along the way, but what fun would it be if I were to give you a little lip along the way. But overall, we'll have fun. We'll get her done. And so that was the purpose. There would be a fresh start, something which could be achieved only by wiping out the impurities and starting anew with 8 Nesama souls. I'm aware of another time that God's going to say, let's start again. We're going to start with a very small cross-section of people, and we're going to wipe away all the impurities, and we're going to have a fresh start, and we're going to go right back to the garden.
Right.
And by the way, the guy that he's going to do it with is the same guy right there. You see how Chinook's facial features look sort of similar to the host of this program? You ever notice that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't by accident. I didn't request that, but that is it's the way that he's presented. So to achieve this result, Noach and his family would build an ark. And I think that for the first 500 years, first of all, we don't know how long Noach had lived before God said, hey, let's go do this in this particular life. But we know that he spent several centuries just pulling together all the materials, kind of like Dode did. He didn't build the temple right away. His son did, but he accumulated all the materials first. But it was he was 500 when his sons were born. And so they ultimately would build the ark together over 100 years, because the flood occurred when Shem, the name, was 100 years old. So they built it together. Family experience, covenant, working together as a family. And then after they built this ark, prior to Yahweh and inundating the region where mankind had run amok, we see that water is used once again because it is the most universal solvent to wash things away, and it's the elixir of life, which is why it would be used on this occasion. But that wouldn't be the last, because another deep upwelling of water is going to recur, as I've shared, on Teruah, beneath the Temple Mount, and it will purge the final remnant of their guilt, giving them a new start that is made possible by Elia orchestrating the sacrifice of this fellow right here, who becomes the Adam of Perah, the man from Edom. You know, sometimes the names run through all time. So in the context of what came before and what follows, God wants us to know that his focus is on delivering individuals and their families from the negative consequences of human malfeasance, political and religious in particular. Noah was chosen to pilot the ark and to build it because he was Sadak, right about what was important to God. And should you not yet have brought into the realization Noah is Chanuk, well, consider this next disclosure, replete with the same verb and unique stem that distinguished their walks with God. He says, this is a written accounting of the proceedings, the results, and the genealogical records of Noah, the restored guide. We're going to learn all about the accounting and the proceedings and the results of this man's life and the genealogy that would result from what he was doing. That's quite an introduction. And I would ask you, where else would you learn anything about Noah, Shem, the ark, the flood, the Salma man? Does it come to us from a number of different sources?
No, one. It's
one.
only Torah. Yeah. Barashit,
only Torah. Yeah. Any mention of it in any other book, thousands and thousands of years later in the New Testament, all corrupted, or in the Quran even twisted after being twisted and perverted. No, it all comes from the same source. And if somebody once says, the Gilgamesh epic, it was written before this. No, it wasn't. First of all, no, it wasn't written before this. It didn't occur before this. It was written well after this. And second of all, if you were to, and I've done this from the text that's available, and by the way, it's only like 5% of the text that is extant on the mud clay tablets. Almost all of it, that Gilgamesh epic, 95% of it, comes from things that were written about what people either recalled or they wanted to write a story thousands of years after those initial clay tablets. So there's only 5% of it that exists in antiquity. It doesn't exist as far back as antiquity as this story. And when I compared the two, everything about them, I read everything about both stories, including what was recently added. They overlap about 1% of the time, and they diverge 99% of the time. So that for one to say, "Oh no, that Noah story, it's just a rehashing of the earlier account." No, they have 1% in common: a person and a boat and water. That's what they have in common.
There's a painting about that too, right?
Goodness gracious, folks. God, think before you open your yaps and pretend like you're smart, because you're not. So this is a written accounting of the proceedings, the results, and the genealogical record of Noah, the restored guide. Noah the reliable explorer and spiritual guide, had been a correctly vindicated and rededicated man, an upright and innocent individual who was known to be right. He was Sadak. What is the single most important attribute that God can bequeath upon another human being or on a human being?
Sadak.
It's Sadak. Sadak is as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Correct. Vindicated. Acquitted. Upright. It doesn't get better than Sadak. Now, this tells you a lot because there was no text, no prophets, nothing available for Noach to read for him to be right about God unless God specifically taught him these things. And they had no conversation before this that is recorded. So guess what? He received all of this in Shamaim. He built his initial foundation upon what he learned from Adam. And then he had 50 years in Shamaim heaven to learn the rest of it. But he was correct. He was vindicated. He was a rededicated, upright, and innocent individual who was known to be right without ceasing. This is the other attribute that matters to God. Right and without ceasing. Prepared to complete the mission, assuring a successful finish. Tamym. I Googled, I don't know if it was yesterday or this morning. I think it was yesterday. Ask Yada's AI assistant. I said, is Tamid from the actionable root Tamam? And if so, are there any implications we can draw from that? The answer was absolutely brilliant, concise, articulate, and it reflects exactly what we've come to know, that there is almost nothing other than Sadak right that is more important with God than Tamim. And when you can get rid of the religious mumbo jumbo of perfection, God said he's not perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect animal, and perfect is a waste of energy and time with no hope for a future. And once you get rid of this religious nonsense that Tamim should be rendered perfect, and you realize that Tamim is the plural of tam, and tamam is the verbal root, and it doesn't say anything about perfect.
Right.
And you realize what it does say. Complete the job. Finish. To, without ceasing, be prepared to complete the mission, assuring a successful finish. Tamim, unimpaired, with integrity, ready for action, complete, entirely truthful, of sound mind, from Tamam, to completely conclude and totally finish right to the very end without ever ceasing, never impaired, never failing. Get her done. This is the thing that God most wants from us. You know, somebody questions their position within the covenant. Well, measure yourself up next to this. That's the answer. In fact, you could use both too. Are you sufficiently enlightened, educated, thoughtful, to the point that your understanding regarding Yahweh is right?
Yeah.
And if it isn't, read more.
Right.
Listen more.
Yeah.
And are you engaged to the point that you're going to continue the job to the very end? I mean, what happened to those people who pretended they were covenant and left to pursue the mother goddess? They didn't finish.
They didn't finish. Yeah.
And, you know, you're not going to finish. You aren't part of the covenant. Finishing is absolutely essential. That's why we went in to save Dode from himself when he faltered multiple times and finally cratered with the Bathsheba affair. So that's it. Tamim, in his lineage, With the Almighty, Noach, the restored guide to spiritual life, unfazed by external societal influences, walked, traveling through life while independently journeying through space-time. Genesis 6:9. Where have we heard that before? Not once, but twice. Wasn't that
Twice,
the same line that twice repeated with Chinook?
And
what is the difference between
5.
knowing and what's the difference, Kevin, between knowing and understanding?
Knowing and understanding. Knowing is facts. But understanding is being able to bring comprehensively the picture together, and also being able to teach the picture.
Making connections with the things that you have learned to be true. When you go from knowing to understanding, you have made the connections necessary to transition to the point of comprehension. So it is bringing things together. So when God said twice of that man, independent of human influences, he journeyed through life with me. And he repeated himself twice. And then he said the same thing of Noach. What do you think that suggests?
Yeah, surprise, surprise. In the very next chapter, this wasn't like further on or something. He's pointing and saying, "Hey, pay attention to this.
Hey, pay attention to this. I'm repeating this because I want you to process it, retain it, because I want you to make the connection when I say it again."
Right.
So that is that's the answer. And in that answer, we're not only demonstrating that Chinook was Enoch and all of the implications of that, which means that if God used him a second and third time, that he didn't stop there.
Right.
That he continued to use this soul to accomplish this purpose. And that means there are other souls that God has redeployed, including Noach's son, Shem, who was dubbed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God's got a cast of characters that he trusts, that he likes, and he redeploys them throughout time. And that's a powerful insight into how God operates. But also with this story, we have absolute assurance what matters to God. Being unaffected by religion and politics, the main thrust of human institutions, and journeying through life upright, walking with God, not bowing down, not worshiping, and not in any association with any human institution, political or religious. That's what God is looking for. And if you can do that and develop an understanding about him that is right, correct, and then finish the job. Because it doesn't matter how hard you work if you're doing the wrong thing. So being right has to be paired with finishing, so these are mutually inclusive concepts. So what a powerful way to understand life. Now, I know you just stopped the timer, and I'm glad you did this. This is really a powerful teaching tool of what God is expecting from us, wants from us, and will deliver to us if we will do these things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. The finishing the job. The results matter. The results matter. It's not just I tried hard. It's not like I read every book and I worked really hard at it. Is it, what was the result? Did you engage? Yeah. Did you use with what you learned?
There are 35 books that sit behind me, and they're going to be augmented by the 3 volumes of Coming Home 4. Mm-hmm. That is 25 years worth of effort, 100,000 hours, all dedicated to that purpose. That's my arc. That's my tree of knowledge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's finishing the job.
Well, in Teruah, I think is the curtain call, is finishing the job, because that is just setting us all up. But yeah, we have an intermission, an interlude, and then we come back to finish the job. So
on Teruah, and what Teruah says, I'm not just telling you that my body is immaterial and that my soul is all that matters. I'm going to allow my body to be bludgeoned right here on the top of the Temple Mount, and to serve as a means to purge you of your religion so that you get a second chance of life. But I want you to witness what I'm going to do here, because I'm going to put myself where my words have been.
Right.
You're going to get a chance to to see me walk the walk, not just talk the talk. That's God's way of following through on all of this. That's why there was an ark as opposed to a miracle.
Mm-hmm. Earlier in the first show, we talked about Nakam removing the mem from regret to give us Noach. I mean, there's no matzah without water, right? You don't make matzah
Correct.
without water.
Correct.
Throughout his metaphors with Elia, the dress rehearsal for Teruah, there is copious amounts of water. The Gulf of Aqaba, that they are, Israel comes through water. When Israel goes into Israel, they cross the Yarden through water. So over and over and over, his metaphors.
Water is the universal solvent. It is the elixir of life. All the way through, the metaphors are always the same. That is correct. Methinks you think.
I read a little. I read a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Read and process. Let's see if you got a few more minutes. Let's do a few comments on the news. We'll keep this as a normal vlog on the vlog, even though we've gone a little longer. And we may postpone our luminary show based upon all that we have done here. All right.
Make sure we got a fresh.
There we go.
Minute.
So Trump's approval rating, it says here, hits a new low. I must read a post that says that Trump's approval rating has hit a new low 5 times a week. And I think I've done it now for a year and a half.
Right. So
now,
they're polling.
You know what his approval rating is?
33%, I guess.
No, it's 38 to 39%. It's always the same. That's how many religious Christian MAGAs there are.
There are,
so
right.
It's always a poll of how many Christian MAGAs are there.
Yes.
And the census of Christian MAGAs who are incapable of recognizing that this person is the devil, that he is a confabulator, that he is the most evil person who has ever lived, not just the most evil person alive today. There are 38% of Americans who are too stupid to recognize that Satan.
Right. And the other ones don't recognize, they don't get credit for recognizing that he's Rahab. They just hate him. Yeah.
They just hate him. And they hate him for lots of good reasons, but not the right reason.
Not the right. They are not Sadak.
That is correct. You need to it's just like hate is a virtue, but you need to know what to hate, how to hate, why to hate, when to hate. And we always hate with our words, and we pick people who are caustic to society and to the truth and to life when we despise them. He is despicable. Yeah, this is really amazing. The Israeli war in Lebanon is not going well. And it is because the Hezbollah has been infused with Iranian Shahed drones. No surprise, right? What they have learned is that you use these Shahed drones, and troops that fight like the Israelis do in armored personnel carriers and single file marches and in tanks, they're easy prey. You can't move like that and act like that, like you think you can be a military against anyone who is deploying drones. I mean, the Russians learned that, the Ukrainians learned that. We should have learned that, and the Israelis should have learned that fighting Iran. And yet the United States and Israel are still fighting the 20th century's wars. While China, Russia, Ukraine, and Iran have moved into the 21st century, and this is going to be disastrous for Israel. Israel just went and bought a whole new squadron of F-35s. They have no value to them whatsoever. They have no use for the war that's coming, or the war that is, or what happened on 10/7, the war that was. It's sad that Israel is just so boneheaded, and they won't even read their own prophets to know what the right approach actually is. And it's not more F-35s, I can assure you. Did you watch any of Headcase's testimony before
I
the Senate
saw,
or Congress?
yes, I did. I caught a couple hours of it a couple days ago. Yes.
Would you agree that it is the most convoluted bull Schuster ever heard in one's life?
Yes. He doesn't differentiate than most of the contentious Senate hearings I've heard, but yes, it is convoluted bullshit. No doubt about it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He is so outclassed, so miserably dishonest. And all he goes back to says, if you disagree with him, then you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. That's
yes.
In fact, Trump said today that, the Pope wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Mm-hmm. And no, nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. But guess what? Idiot. Why can't you get this through your alcoholic brain? Did Iran have a nuclear weapon prior to Trump's last war or this war? Did they?
Right.
No.
Not as far as we know. Yeah, no.
And could Iran have developed a nuclear weapon at any time during that 10 to 15 year period with about 2 weeks effort?
Yes.
Yes.
They've been
Iran
there for a long time.
could have made up to 15 nuclear bombs. They already had the missiles to deliver them with 2 weeks effort at any time over the last 15 years. Did they?
No.
No. So you're attacking Iran a second time had nothing to do with Iran not having a nuclear weapon. Simple.
Right.
No, and so the fact is that you, by attacking Iran not once but twice, what do you think you've done to the likelihood of Iran now having a nuclear weapon?
You have motivated them.
Oh,
they
absolutely.
Have very good motivation.
And doubly, because first of all, the Ayatollah, the father that you killed, had a fatwa against nuclear weapons. And he went and killed him. And his son that you maimed and killed everybody in his family, he's always thought that the safest thing for Iran is to have a nuclear weapon because it's a defensive weapon that keeps belligerents like the United States and Israel from attacking them. So you killed the guy that said no, and you empowered the guy that said yes. And you've put Iran in a position where if they don't develop a nuclear weapon, they'll continue to get bludgeoned by the United States that wants to obliterate them. So what you have done, idiot, by attacking Iran not once but twice, is guarantee that they're going to have a nuclear weapon. And you did nothing to prevent them having a nuclear weapon because they didn't have one previously. So, good God. And that was his only answer. He had no answer other than that.
Yeah. He had some backup. He had all the suits there with him, the generals and some stuff. And the one I saw anyway that would try to deflect questions for him from time to time and come up with some facts. But the one I saw was their appropriations conversation about why we needed $135 billion in rah. But it went down along party lines. But no, he never
$135 billion more for a war that you've accomplished nothing.
Right.
There is no indication that the missile production has been decreased, that the missile arsenal has been decreased, that the fast boat inventory has been decreased, and there is no indication that any of the uranium-235 has been removed. If you list your pre-war objectives, you accomplished nothing. And regime change, all you did is get the younger generation who have all fought against America previously empowered.
Mm-hmm.
You failed across the board, and you want a $135 billion payday to what? Retool so you can do it again?
Right.
But is there anybody in the Senate or in Congress that has a backbone?
No.
No character. I saw a meme that said there's a booth outside the congressional building, and it said, please leave your backbone here before entering. He's letting his dogs either inside or outside when he moves like that. That's what he's doing. He's being kind to animals. Go ahead there. Yes. Let's go to another one.
Mama's home. Sir. So Bella was saying to me, it's time to go out and see Mama.
Time to go outside. Yeah, you're boring, Dad. I want to go out. Boy, the towel heads are really in a bad way right now. They don't know what to do, and the problem is that the Arab towel heads haven't figured out how to do anything. If you look at the entire Arab Sunni world, it is. If it were not for black ooze, they would still be humping camels and swinging scimitars.
Yes, they would.
They have no industry of any kind. And when they build their fancy cities, it's all imported. I'm not going to say workers because they're not workers, they're slaves. They steal their passports, they pay them a fraction of what they promised, and they won't let them leave. And they make them sleep without air conditioning in the heat of that country on the floor. It is the most despicable slave economy ever. These are scum. These family dictators that Trump has buttered up and America has enriched are utter scum, and they have no competency. They have bought hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons, and they don't know how to use them. And so they're wringing their hands. We don't like what's happening. America abandoned them. The petrodollar deal is toast. It's done. Iran is in a position to destroy them and has to destroy them because they've aided and abetted the destruction of Iran.
Right.
So they got nothing.
UAE's last port on that side is gone. It's on fire. It's gone.
Yes, it's gone. It's on fire, and it will be completely destroyed. And then the pipeline that Saudi Arabia has to the Red Sea, it will be destroyed by the Houthis. And no, when Trump said, I'm going to blockade the blockade, and then I'm going to have Operation Freedom, where I'm going to provide transport through my blockade that I'm blockading because I didn't like the blockade. And then the military came out and said, well, we're really not escorting ships. No, we're not putting our ships in the straits. No, we're not really doing. We're giving them some advice as to what route and what day they maybe should maneuver.
Right.
Oh, this is the biggest pile of lies in the history of lies. And the towel heads with their little halo on the top and their sandals, they just wallow in their oil luxury. But something, you can't eat oil.
No.
Can't drink oil.
Nope.
Not going to do them any damn bit of good. The Muslim world literally is it's falling apart. It's not just Sunni against Shia now. They're in opposition to one another. That's why the UAE left OPEC. They didn't want any part of the rest of them. They're not having any fun with Iran, but they don't want any part of the rest of them. It's too bright out here and too glary. But what did I write on that one? Or you can, you're just going to have to read it to me so I can respond to it. Oh yeah.
Revelation plagiarizes and
another twist and say. I think that the story and Ezekiel and what it says in Revelation, that could be really the same event. What do you think? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, good God. Revelation paraphrases and plagiarizes Ezekiel more than any other book. Over 30 times. I think it's 38 to be exact. Ezekiel was inspired by Satan. It has 25 ways to torture and kill Jews. It has 2 despicable rape scenes in the midst of it. The 2 visions of heaven are wholly and completely satanic and pagan. It exists to pave over the entirety of Judea, not just of Jerusalem, with this utterly gaudy temple. And he's got Copper Khan, the measure man, who is Donald Trump, laying it all out. Ezekiel is satanic. And so
doesn't sound like the Yahweh I know.
Yeah, and so the 2 books, Revelation, which pilfers more from the satanic Ezekiel than any other book, all it does by stealing from it is prove that it cannot be trusted. So 2 erroneous tales of the same event is still a non-event. Wake up, Twistian. You're lost. You've been played for a fool. That's why we do a blog on the blog.
That's right. There's not going to be a Magog and Gog.
You know, the Democrats are talking about here double lead over the GOP in the push to flip the Congress. So what? So what?
What if there's no election?
I mean, really,
no
so what?
midterms.
Okay. There's two things here that the Marxists are as dumb as MAGAs. That's the problem that America has. Let's say that you win the Congress. What are you going to gain? Oh, you can impeach Donald Trump. Whereas he can be convicted if you impeach him. He would be convicted in the Senate, right? So it doesn't matter if you win the Congress, if you don't win a significant majority in the Senate, because the impeachment is meaningless without a conviction.
Right.
So who gives a crap what you do in the Congress? Second of all, how often has Trump turned to the Congress to achieve whatever he wanted to impose? It's all executive orders, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
I think he used them once on one vote, which was his big, beautiful bill.
Beautiful bill. Mm-hmm.
And he won that by one vote. But that's it. So Congress means nothing to him. And Congress means nothing to you without the Senate. So why can't you think this through? I actually talked to a congresswoman. I had dinner with her. She sat side by side about a month ago. And I said, what are you doing? Why can't you effectively combat Donald Trump? Because you obviously can't. And she said, we're just way too afraid of him. All of us. He said, so it's like a third of the of congressmen and senators actually believe his rot. About a third are just clueless and don't want any part of anything that's going on. And a third are just paralyzed because he's so mean. Right. In other words, there's not a person in the Congress or Senate that knows how to deal with Rahab. Oh, piece of crap. Young man who has on his little breathe strip, all praise due to Allah. Young man, read the damn Quran. It is the worst book ever written. Allah spends all of his time, 100% of it, in hell, torturing people. And he tortures actual bodies, which means from Allah's point of view, there is no such thing as a soul. It's all physical bodies and actual fires in hell. And he spends 100% of his time torturing people. And he's so ruthless that when he burns off their skins, he gives them another skin so he can continue to turn them on his rotisserie. And when they're dying of thirst, he pulls molten pitch down their throats. Allah is worse than Satan. And he brags about how many people he slaughtered and how ruthless a terrorist he is, and that he perpetrates genocide. And he demands that all Muslims die killing for him. That is who Allah is. That's what the Quran says. And Muhammad, he's the biggest piece of shit that ever lived.
Yeah.
He was a pedophile. He was a rapist. He was a ruthless terrorist. He was a thief. He was a con man. He was an illiterate thug. Now, if you think those statements are pejorative, read Goddamn Religion. Be the first person ever to disprove the 4,200 pages of evidence in Goddamn Religion, where my sole source are the Islamic scriptures, the Hadith and the Quran. That is all I rely on, and I use them to condemn Allah and Muhammad on their own words. So learn what you're professing there, idiot, before you profess it.
He's definitely one of those that has been corrupted to the third and fourth generation by his father.
Correct.
Not thinking for himself, that's for sure.
Just not thinking. This is the one that I mentioned earlier. The Trump accuses the Pope Leo of endangering the whole lot of Catholics because he doesn't care that Iran gets a nuclear bomb. So he's projected onto the Pope that the Pope doesn't care if Iran has a nuclear bomb, and that Trump is the savior of the world because he cares and doesn't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. the Pope hasn't said diddly squat about Iran and a bomb. And you haven't done anything to stop Iran having a bomb. In fact, you've encouraged Iran having a bomb. So this is the problem of that satanic POS that MAGAs all view as somehow godly, is that everything he says is the opposite of what's true. Everything. The most despicable human being who's ever lived. And that's not an exaggeration.
He wants to set himself up to be Pope and then to be God. So yeah, it won't be long. He'll reveal himself through that.
I think he views Pope as way beneath him.
Sure.
Way beneath him. And he doesn't even want to be Jesus. He did, unless you want to believe that Jesus is God. But yes, his pronouncement, the Ides of March 2030, is that he's God. With all evidence, of course, being to the contrary. If he's God, then I suggest we fire him.
Right. Well, we've run through our timer.
There we go. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure to do this with you. This is the Epic City Planet community in Texas. And again, one of the frustration things is you take the time to write Prophet of Doom and then the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion, where you prove conclusively that Islam is a terrorist doctrine, and that it's that the Quran demands that all Muslims wage an eternal war against non-Muslims, and every Muslim dies killing for Allah, and that there is no freedom in Islam. All Muslims are slaves to Allah, and that Allah is not a God, and that Muhammad was not a prophet. And you prove those things conclusively, and people can't get out of their own shadow. They can't even bother to read what you risked your life to share with them. It's exceedingly frustrating, but that's what God wanted. He wanted to leave people without excuse. And so if anybody said, well, I didn't know any better, well, then why didn't you read?
Right.
So thank you very much. I enjoyed doing this program with you, Kevin. We covered a lot of territory. We've spent a fair amount of time at it, but it is the vlog on the blog. It's a top item on our vlog page. And I think this has been an important contribution to it. And hopefully it just follows right in sequence with the truncated program we did this morning. But thank you, Absolutely. Sir. I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's a wonderful format.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.